Hello and welcome to PhD with Woman on It, Hack the Future. My name is Beata and today's PhD Positivity Hack Delivered will be by our guest, Masha Zvereva. Topic of today's discussion is how to break the bias in tech. Episode 71 starts here. As Sheryl Sandberg says, we can each define ambition and progress for ourselves. The goal is to work toward a world where expectations are not set by the stereotypes that hold us back, but our personal passion, talents, and interests. Easier said than done, because really, tech companies struggle with transparency, accountability, and awareness. Before I delve into the topic of today's discussion, let me congratulate Lori Starch, founder and president of Launch X Entrepreneurship Program. She was featured on the cover of Top 10 Unstoppable Women Entrepreneurs of 2022 by Success Pictures. Let's also vote for Diversio's founder, Linda Stukbarova, on Woman of the Year. She lives for her work award. Congratulations to Eva Gallant, our previous guest on PhD. She's also the founder of Hashiona. She had the opportunity to pitch and share her experience at WHI Congress in Israel. As I said, tech companies struggle with transparency. From unconscious bias to conscious bias, it's hard to break the cycle of discrimination and stereotypes and make your workplace a truly inclusive environment. In fact, a 2020 study by the Anita Borg Institute found that women account for only 28.8% of the total workforce. Historically, the industry has long suffered from a bias that discourages women from pursuing technical careers. Additionally, tech's historic lack of diversity can manifest itself in the products people create. Join us in the discussion with Masha, an entrepreneur, speaker, content creator, ex-Googler, and an advocate for women in their workplace. She's on a mission to drive female impact and innovation in tech by helping women to navigate the corporate world and giving them the tools to transform the work culture and meet their needs and life choices. Masha, let's start with a simple question. Where in the world are you today?
Hi, I am tuning in from Denver, Colorado.
Denver, Colorado, beautiful location. I am at the moment in beautiful by nature Turks and Caicos Island. We are actually, Masha, I believe, from the Eastern Bloc of Europe, which is always kind of stained by the perception of they are harsh, they are somewhat not easy to talk to, because we usually say straight what we feel like. Is that true with you, Masha?
Interesting question, Beata. Yes, I am from the Eastern Bloc, and the culture is, there's a stereotype around that. However, because I was brought up in the West, I feel like I've learned how to, and also, my dad has been very diplomatic all the time. So I've learned other manners that I don't think make people perceive me that way. However, that's a stereotype that I've been very aware of from a very young age. And I think that is why I'm doing what I'm doing right now. Like, that perception of where I come from and the people from that area has been something that has planted a seed in my brain and led me to what I'm doing now.
Kudos to you, sister. We have Vladlena Dufresne in our comments saying so excited for this conversation. Vladlena, share a story of you breaking the bias if you can, because we are going to talk about how to break the bias and how to break the chain of perception in our life and let us fly higher when we are believed that we can achieve whatever we want, no matter of our backgrounds. So, Masha, you were raised in the Western world. How old were you when you came to US?
I first went to the UK. I used to have a proper British accent. I was 14 when I left. And yeah, basically have lived in 5 different countries. And now I'm in the US, married to an American person, hence the accent.
Bravo, well done. So why US?
Because my partner is from here. And I'm very easy when it comes to relocation. And that's what happened.
So would you say that traveling and exploring different countries and working with different nationalities help you relocate easier?
Oh, 100%. And living in a different country from such a young age just made me that much more adaptable and taught me how to make friends, build community, right? Because it's so important, especially as an expat. So yeah, and honestly, if it wasn't for COVID, we were digital nomads when COVID hit. And if it wasn't for COVID, we would probably be living that lifestyle right now still.
So you were a digital nomad before it was cool. Now, let's talk about how to break the bias. You've done some research. Why are you passionate and why do you do research on this topic?
Well, like I said, I was very acutely aware of stereotypes, and not necessarily gender stereotypes. When I was younger, I was much more aware of the stereotypes that come along with where we're from, our background, the country, etc., and how people perceive us and the stereotypes that come along with it. So that was the seed that was planted in me. I remember I wrote essays on the subject when I was at school, and then growing up and starting my career, I realized when I entered the tech space that there are a lot of biases against women. There are a lot of stereotypes, and some of those stereotypes are in our own heads. And so I started, that topic just sparked this interest in me, and I decided that it's something that I need to investigate further. I need to understand why. I need to understand how we can fight these stereotypes, because essentially they end up holding women back. They end up holding companies back. They end up holding our economy back, because it's proven, studies show that companies that have, a higher proportion of diverse workforce perform better economically. So, it is a block for everybody here. So, interesting topic.
Very interesting topic. And there is one study that I like to talk a lot about, which talks about hiring people on potential versus proof. And I'm not sure whether you read it, but Masha, I think it's very important to mention that there are several studies that show that men are hired on potential, women are hired on proof, and quite often not even then they are hired. So have you experienced any bias in that form, or can you give us some examples?
Very interesting study, something that I definitely would love to research further, because I haven't read that study in particular. However, I do know that, when it comes to biases and stereotypes, it operates on 2 levels. The company, right, and the way they treat you based on who you are, and also yourself and your inner stereotypes, your inner biases against yourself. And I know that, and I've seen that play out so many times with myself and my friends, my colleagues, the women that are in my circle. I've seen women only apply, and there's been a study, women only apply for roles when they feel 100% qualified, as opposed to men who apply for roles, I believe they're either 40 or 60% qualified. I don't remember the exact statistic, but it's like even within our own brains, men see their own potential and they're like, well, I can learn this on the job, right? I have the predisposition to learn these skills. I can learn it. While women read the job description and they only apply for it when they're 100% qualified, which obviously stunts our growth. And this is a bias internally. Of course, there is a bias externally. There's so many statistics on the fact that sometimes recruiters only reach out to men for certain positions. In fact, I have a statistic in 2021, 36.6% of interview requests were sent to just men. Says something.
Well, we know about the study that shows that Google is also biased against women, but it's actually our problem, because when we look for jobs, we usually aspire for lower paid jobs. So Google is serving us well, not well, because it shows us less ambitious jobs. But we can talk about problems, we can give examples and so on. Give me solutions, Masha.
Solutions. The thing is, we need to be more aware of the biases that exist in the workplace and in our own heads. I think the step number one is awareness and understanding that these biases exist throughout the journey of the person who is of a woman who is applying and who is working within the tech field or any other industry, honestly. And we need to look at the different stages of the employee's journey throughout their career. So, for example, first we have hiring and interviewing. What biases exist there? As we already have mentioned, women are hired on proof, men are hired on potential. How do we dismantle that? How do we become more aware of the biases that the company might have in place? How can we become more aware of the biases that exist in our own heads? Then the interview questions. A lot of the times, women are asked questions regarding their family and home, questioning whether they're going to be able to combine those effectively, questioning their commitment, etc. Men don't tend to get as many questions there. Then we have biases when it comes to our pay, our salary, right? There's a statistic from 2019 that 60% of the time men are offered a higher salary for the same job at the same company than women. And that women, this is the data for tech, women on average are offered 3% less for the same job for the same company. So we have to make sure that we're aware of these biases. And, of course, there's also the fact that women negotiate less than men. Then we need to look at the workplace in general and the treatment of women versus men or any other, groups that are not the majority. What biases exist in the workplace? Are there any policies that are not great for women versus men or any other genders, right? Some of the policies that we can think of is, flexible work, flexible hours, remote work. There's also parental leave policies, etc. Then we have the fact that the promotion cycles can be biased, right? Again, we have a woman run into the problem of perception of potential versus proof. A lot of the times men are being promoted for their potential. Then we have biases in terms of what tasks, the task allocation, and, that there's this concept of non-promotable tasks, and women tend to get the higher percentage of it, which, again, stunts their growth. Then we have biases when it comes to just general comments, biases against taking women seriously, and all of that stuff. There's so much to unpack. And the motherhood penalty. We have biases against mothers, and that's something that I have also individually realized at some point that I had a bias against working mothers back when I was starting my career, because I didn't understand the context that they're working with. So I think, throughout the stages, all the stages of the employee's journey in their career, we need to be aware of all of the different biases that they can face. And the first step is awareness. We need to be aware of what they are. The second step is changing them, right? Figuring out how we can make the playing field equal for everybody, right? So for example, when it comes to the allocation of tasks and the non-promotable tasks in particular, that can stunt women's growth. How can we make the process of task allocation more fair, making sure that women and men get an equal proportion of those non-promotable tasks? How do we make sure that everybody has access to the same opportunities? And then we also, when designing systems, that's like step number 3, when designing new systems, when designing new processes, we need to keep these biases in mind and ask ourselves constantly, are these biases preventing me from having an equal judgment? Will these biases come into play at any stage of this process? Will anybody be in a disadvantaged position because of these biases? So it's a big beast that we're working with, and we got to take it a step at a time.
Well, we saw that small companies struggle with bias. Huge companies struggle with bias even more so. I mean, we have seen some really weird stories happening in big technology companies, not just mention small companies. And quite often the problem is we employ somebody in charge of HR who is going to look after the good of the women and minorities and people who are unrepresented in the tech company. But then nothing changes because these policies are not really changing the mindset, because it's so easy to change the policy. It's so difficult to change the mindset. So how would you say, as a woman in tech, how would you address or challenge a bias in the workplace? Let's say you had a colleague who asked you to make a coffee, and there was another colleague, junior, who was sitting next to you, and he was not asked to make a coffee. How would you challenge that perception?
I would question the colleague asking me for that. I would question them whether they think it's the best use of my time based on the specialized skills that I have and the impact that I can have within the company. I think when it comes to this mindset shift that you're talking about, we need to remind people. So we need to make sure that we're not confrontational in a way that would make the other person defensive, right? We don't want to pitch ourselves against them. We don't want to say, well, you're discriminating me or something like that. We want to make sure that we align ourselves in their perception onto the same team. And we're on the same team, and we're working towards something. So for example, we're working towards the sales goals of the organization, the revenue goals of the organization. So how can you showcase with your response to this person that your time is more valuable to that goal? How can you show them that you're on the same team and you're thinking of the benefit of the company, and that you are essentially working towards the same goals? And the fact that show how this discrimination, how these biases are preventing you from doing that, preventing the team from achieving something, if that makes sense.
That totally makes sense. I would say, Masha, I would compare it to the lean in movement, which is we need to fit in, but really change things slowly. So you wouldn't like to revolutionize the strategy that company has, or the perception. I'm the weak person. I'm the female, so I want to be caring. I want to be nurturing, but not shake the sisterhood or shake the men in our department. Would you say that's the strategy here?
I don't think, to be honest, I don't think that there's a single strategy here and one is right or wrong. I think as women, we have different personalities, and we need to be accepted for the different personalities that we have. It's not, men versus women in terms of men are more assertive, women are weaker. There's some women, some of my friends are the most assertive people I know. And I have some male friends that are less assertive, let's say. I think we need to learn how to work within the workplace based on what are our go-to strategies, based on our personality and based on what we're comfortable with. And we need to learn how to, as a society, see the value in all of those, right? And it's all about communicating what you bring to the table. I don't think that there is a single strategy here. I think that we need to be working from all angles. And we need to be smarter about how we work. Because at the end of the day, it's not a war, right? We need to work together. We need to remind people that we are on the same team.
Yep. Well, we need to work together, but somehow the female issues, I mean, the women who are struggling at the workplace and with their promotion, getting promoted and so on, are left alone because it's not men's problem. How to engage our male participants to help us along the way?
100%. As I've already mentioned, I think it's all about showing them that your interests are aligned. You are aligned with growing the company. You are aligned with helping the company. And so it's the matter of shifting the way you position yourself and position what the struggles that you have. So for example, let's say you're not getting promoted, you're not getting recognized for the work that you're doing for the company. So can you find a male colleague? Let's say that you have the leadership is all male. So can you find a male colleague that will understand that the fact that you, by recognizing you more, you will be more motivated to work and contribute to the company. Or, for example, can you, let's say that you are getting bogged down with these minutia tasks, the admin task, the office housework. Can you talk to a person in leadership? Let's say it's a male colleague. Can you talk to them about how your time would be much more valuable to the company and the company's goals if it was spent more on the actual critical tasks to the company? Normally, those critical tasks are the ones that get you promoted, right, and grow your career. So how can you change that language? How can you switch it from confrontational, just, this is not treating me right? How can you be smarter about it? Because at the end of the day, let's just face it, women, we know how to deal with different situations. We can be more strategic. So let's be more strategic. Let's show these people. Let's demonstrate how it's in their interests to promote us. It's in their interests to treat us equally. It is in their interests to do this because it is in the company's interests. And that will look better in front of their bosses. So I think it's all about making them realize this, and whether you need to build a mini business case for it, or whether you just need to get this person to feel empathy towards you by, appealing to their family values or there's something else. We're smart. We can do our research on people and understand what buttons we need to kind of push in order to get them to see how our interests are aligned.
Excellent. Thank you, Masha, for this passionate speech. We know that many companies are trying to embrace the different personalities, different cultures, diversity of age, religion, ethnicity is all very important for companies' success. Although we have not seen yet many companies embracing female leadership style. And here is one story I wanted to share with you, a story of my dear friend Miho Tanaka, with a background with a family from Japan. She used to live in New Zealand, then she relocated to Berlin, and she was leading her startup. The feminine style of leadership is often labeled weak or too soft, she says. And in the beginning, when I was receiving advice from male leaders, I was often criticized for being too nice or that I need to be more aggressive to assert dominance and power over my team. After much insistence on their part and hesitance on mine, I tried putting their advice into practice, with disastrous results. This made me quickly realize there are ways of doing things that work for men but not for women, and vice versa. Do you have difficulty as a female? Did you experience bias as a female leader in the past, and how did you overcome it?
Well, yeah, like it's a double-edged sword. We're told to be more assertive, and yet when we are more assertive, we are perceived as aggressive, and it just opens up a can of worms where all of a sudden we're a bad person. And it's just, women are judged on their character so much more than men. Men are judged on their potential, while women are judged on their character more often. There have been studies, I don't remember the exact numbers from that, but there have been studies that show that. So whenever I showed certain leadership qualities, I have not had a lot of discrimination. I've been very lucky, but there was this one comment from a male colleague that just drove me insane. He said, "Oh, wow, you'll be a really good mother." So we straight away went from "I'm good at my job" to "Oh, gender stereotypes, you're going to be a good mother." Like, he had no context of whether I wanted children or not. All of a sudden, instead of saying you're good at your job, I was complimented on having the potential to be a good mother, not a good leader. So yes, I've had those comments. However, I don't really have a great solution here. That's something that I'm still trying to work through and trying to see if there's a way to communicate our value to the company with a different leadership style. It is going to take a long time for us to figure out how do we change the perception of the society, and how do we navigate the space of, oh, you got to be more assertive if you want to be a leader, if you want to be taken seriously, and then at the same time being judged for being more assertive because that comes off as more aggressive. I don't know. It is a puzzle to me at this point. I'm not going to lie.
Well, we know that neuroscience and actually the new cognitive studies are trying to define the biases and our backgrounds, why we perceive things as they are, and why some techniques that combine multiple disciplines, including functional imagining, social observation, to provide us with a richer understanding of social behavior and perceptions. One thing that also springs to mind is maybe, Masha, maybe we should, as women, look for positive in each day. Because if you were complimented on being a good mother, that's a positive thing. But you were then focused on the judgmental kind of motherhood stream, which is not well seen in a business environment. Would that be an approach that we should take? Look for positive in each day, even if some days we have to look harder?
I think in that particular instance, I wouldn't look for positives there. I would tell the male colleague why that comment is not necessarily appropriate in the workplace environment, because I think that is reinforcing gender stereotypes, and I don't want to reinforce gender stereotypes within the workplace. No, there are enough of those. There are enough of biases, etc. Looking for positives is always good. However, I think we need to keep our colleagues accountable when it comes to instances like this. I had other instances of the same colleague making comments that are not aligned with my values, that reinforce gender stereotypes. And I've commented back saying, do you understand how this comment will affect other women, how this can affect their perception of themselves, their role in the society, etc. Because all of these comments, they add up, right? It's little by little. This is how we start getting the message from the society on what our role is. And this is something that we're trying to move away from. So yeah, that's how I would go about those kind of comments.
Definitely, toxic assumptions are those who are driving our female force out of the companies. The retention is scarce if we don't embrace the diverse workplace, if we don't let females feel part of the team, part of the process of hiring and promoting. We have quite a lot of comments. Exchange Invest says, hello ladies, interesting topic today, break the bias hashtag. We have, yes, absolutely, IPOV in Patrick's opinion. You're going to be a good mother sounds like a cry for help from the dim-witted bloke who said it. Totally dim. There you go. That's my husband for you. You've got another fan here. Agata Bellon is saying, how do we improve access for women to get more of the sisterhood working in IT? Masha, that's a tricky one.
Love this question. I think there are multiple levels to this problem. First, of course, we want to make sure that there are more women working in technology. And so we need to continue encouraging women to enter the field. And I love seeing what has been happening over the last few years, especially with social media, where we have more role models of women working in tech, and we can see what an engineer looks like, right? And all the different facets and all of the different personalities, and that you don't have to fit a mold to work in tech. I think that's something that will raise a new generation of women in technology who feel more comfortable with the field and enter the field because they have seen someone who looks like them. So I think representation, increasing the representation of women in technology is step number one. Step number two is networking and growing our networks and being much more strategic about it, and much more proactive and much more intentional about it. And, when you're networking, building authentic relationships that enable you to be yourself, talk about the biases that you're facing, how you're going about it, right? For example, the problem that I faced with the "you're going to be a good mother" comment, I have discussed it with so many different female friends, and we've discussed how we would go about this next time it happens. And this means that we already have a comeback next time this happens to many of us, right? So we grew one solution to a problem to a larger group, like a larger group of people now know how to deal with that type of situation. And of course, joining communities of women in technology, and this could be part of networking, this could be just part of you wanting to feel like you belong, and supporting each other, cheering each other on. I really believe in the power of the mindset of community over competition. And this is what it reinforces, these communities. We cheer each other on, we solve each other's problems, and we'll help rise everybody's level together.
Absolutely, and you're doing amazing job because one of your topics that you're passionate about is branding, and you talk about how to brand yourself as an industry leader in technology or whichever else field you choose, and how to go out there and talk about yourself, because this is definitely one of the reasons females don't get promoted, because they don't brag about themselves. They don't talk about their achievements enough. And even if they try to replicate what men are doing all the time, they will never reach the same level. We are just too modest, aren't we?
Yes, we are, unfortunately. This is something that we all need to be more aware of, and something that we need to reinforce much more often. I compare myself to my husband all the time with his confidence and my confidence, with the way he presents himself and the way I present myself. And I wouldn't call myself the most timid or shy person to begin with. Honestly, a lot of the times I ask myself, whenever there's a moment where I have to communicate my worth, I do ask myself, what would my husband do? Because he's a white male and he just goes about his day without thinking it, without overthinking it. And I'm sure in most people's lives, they know that one person that they can ask themselves, what would he do? Or what would they do? Like who, regardless of the gender, what would that person do? How would they go about this? How would they communicate their value? And also, sticking to the facts is important. Sticking to the numbers is important. You can't dispute numbers. If you increased team productivity by 20% by implementing certain strategies, that is a fact. Communicate that. And you're not bragging, you're just stating a fact. So keep your numbers and think about what those confident colleagues would do. Observe them, see how they go about it, and just mimic their strategies. I know that it will feel cringy, but the more women that start doing it now, at the same time, the quicker we will get to a better place where women won't be perceived as bragging. It's going to reflect positively on us, and it's going to be expected of us. It's going to be something that we expect of each other.
So Masha, I presume you felt cringy when you had to brag about your achievements.
At the beginning, 100%. Yes.
There you go. Well, in the meantime, Agata Bellon sends lots of love for you bragging about your achievement and talking about yourself. Well done. In Love and in Pain is sending us message. Hi, Beata and Masha. Another interesting topic. We need to have that confidence and always believe in ourselves. Absolutely. So, one thing that I want to also focus our conversation, because equality for those who are majority feels like an oppression. How do we make sure that men feel part of that movement and they don't feel endangered?
Again, aligning interests and reminding them that our interests align. We're not trying to take away their piece of the pie. We're trying to grow the pie for everyone. And that means we're trying to increase the company revenue. We're trying to increase the GDP of a country, essentially. We are trying to grow the pie. We need to get them out of scarcity mentality, where it's either me or either women or men. And we need to get them to a place of believing in abundance, believing in the fact that we are growing the pie for everyone. So it's all about showcasing how our interests are aligned, why they are aligned. And once they recognize that, they'll be on the same team as us.
Masha, one final example I wanted to talk about without naming names, because I had this conversation just recently, and a lady from Eastern Bloc as well recently moved to UK, but she used to work with different companies from the Western Bloc, and she's a leader herself, and she stumbled to this problem with being too aggressive, not communicating things in a softer way. What would be your advice to her? How to go about? Maybe it's the problem within the company. They don't recognize different mentalities or cultures, or maybe it's a problem with her. What would you address? What would be the steps Masha would take if she was raised in the Eastern Bloc and went to the wild, wild West?
Ooh, so I would say that it's always, I would approach it from two sides. I would definitely let's start with a shorter path. But you have to take those two paths at the same time. The shorter path would be assessing whether your leadership style is different to other people's leadership styles in the organization, and seeing how the other people are treated based on their leadership style. I would just be observing and recording as much data as possible on that. At the same time, so that's the short pathway. And then at the same time, I would be also working on improving my emotional intelligence to understand, because emotional intelligence is a skill. It's something that we can grow and learn. And it's a huge part of leadership skills. Everybody has work to do on their emotional intelligence. We can all get better at it. So, it's a good exercise, regardless of where you are on that spectrum. But step number one to growing your emotional intelligence is growing your self-awareness, reflecting on your behavior, trying to understand and seek out patterns in your behavior. Let's say that you have noticed a pattern of aggressive reactions to something. Start trying to notice, what was the trigger? Is there a pattern? How can you how can you attach a different habit to that trigger? So it's all about awareness, all about understanding, how do you come off to other people, and therefore emotional intelligence, how do you affect other people? How does your behavior, how do your reactions affect other people? And once you start understanding that, you are more in control of how you come off. And whether you want to change your leadership style, if you think this is a problem, this would be the way to do that. Or if you realize that it's a problem within the organization, because at the same time you're observing the leadership styles of other people, then you recognize it's not a problem with you, it's a problem with the organization. Maybe it's not the right organization for you. But I would do this process simultaneously, because it's always good to understand if you're working in an environment that will treat you equally and that will support your growth. But also at the same time, we can always do more work on our emotional intelligence. We can always grow that skill further. So it would be an important exercise, regardless of where you are on your emotional intelligence skills spectrum.
So growing the pie, also growing your emotional intelligence and overall growth for everybody. We have comment from Marianne Madera. Hello, Masha. Indeed, time to grow the pie for everyone. Thank you for your wonderful tips. You're so relatable. I've told you she wouldn't be on this show. Olga Vasina, loving your ability to stress the duality of purpose, not the binary of zero-sum, Masha. Love. So what concrete steps can we make to help get more women in IT?
Whew, goosebumps. Thank you for all the comments. Wonderful. I'm so glad that everybody is so on board and energized by this topic. It is important work that we're doing. So the steps to get more women in IT, I think we need to recognize where we can have an impact and double down on that, because we need to come at it from all angles. We need to encourage more women to study in the field. We need to encourage more women to get degrees, right, when they're students, or more women who are thinking about changing careers, and in the midst of their career they can do so many different courses, boot camps, etc. We need to encourage them. We need to find ways to showcase them, that women can have a successful career in technology, right? Role models, everything, stories, everything is helpful. Financial support, there are scholarships, etc. Funds that you can help with. There's so many different other things. Mentoring women, whether it's college students, etc. Trying to get as many women, basically growing the pipeline and helping the pipeline pipe candidates through. And then we also need to support other women in technology throughout different stages of their career, whether they're junior, mid-size, and leadership level. Junior, mentor them, sponsor them, advocate for them, help them, right? Give back to those women. Middle stage of their career, encourage them. Teach them skills that are more advanced and help them get to the leadership stage. And then leadership, we need to get more role models in the leadership space, right? And that can be done by becoming those role models in leadership that women can aspire to be. Then making it easier for women to get into leadership. So one of the topics that I am researching right now is the drop-off that happens in that when women get to the leadership positions, because a lot of women have to choose or think that they have to choose between motherhood and career. And they choose motherhood because the society expects them to be the primary caregiver, etc. And so we have a leaky pipeline there. So how do we create conditions that enable women to succeed as leaders? There's so many different things, right? But figuring out how we can make it possible for more women to be leaders, regardless of what career choices that they have made. And also, we need to, once we do become leaders, we need to help other women climb the ladder. We need to, basically open the door for more female leaderships. It has to be done from all angles. And so whatever you think that you can do right now, whether it's mentoring other women, contributing financially, looking into policies in the workplace, etc., double down on that, find allies, and make change.
Change is happening to all of us, and as we can see, the change is inevitable, and we are going to finish this show shortly. But before we do, I wanted to say, Agata, thank you so much for your another kind comment. Beata, you did it again. Another lead show with another awesome woman. Thank you, Masha. Feeling totally inspired to grow the pie. Masha, absolutely. You're a role model for many of us. You don't have to be Sheryl Sandberg to stand up for all these women in tech. It's interesting you mentioned the pipeline, because as we know, the pipeline issue is really the revolving door issue, because so many women enter the field and they never have opportunity to grow. So you talked about the fact that you need to grow the pipeline and expand the pipeline, but really you also need to build the ladder for all these female talent, because the retention is scarce. You mentioned the fact that the motherhood is an important part of our life, but
Yes.
then there is the fatherhood, because men should also be welcomed to go to paternity leave, and all these things are going to impact our life when we have men as well enjoying their family time. Right, Masha, to the end of our show, I wanted to ask you, what do you believe are the 5 soft skills so important to female who want to make a career in technology?
Absolutely. I just want to address what you just said with the fathers, because I think it's so important. Women are perceived as the default primary caregiver for children, and that is hurting us, and it is also hurting the relationships between fathers and children. And as I'm diving deeper into this research of how motherhood affects women's careers, I came across the book of Reshma Sujani it's called Pay Up, on this topic. And I also got a chance to talk to her about this topic. And she said, it shouldn't be a woman's issue or men's issue. It's a family issue. The moment we start treating it as family leave, truly, not just motherhood and mother leave and father leave, as long as it's seen as family, we do it all equally, we split it all equally, that's when we're going to reach equity in the workplace. As for the soft skills, I think communication skills is always number one, because we need to be more strategic in the way we communicate. The fact that our interests are aligned, our value, etc. There's so many things that we have discussed. Communication skills, emotional intelligence, so important. We've already touched upon it. I'm not going to go dive deeper into it. Then we have negotiation skills. Unfortunately, women don't negotiate enough. There have been studies that show that women negotiate much less often, and they also face backlash, but that's a different issue. So that is an incredibly important skill. Problem solving, I think that's something that we all need in the workplace and in having a successful career. And finally, oh my God, so many skills that I want to put in here. Which one do I choose? Honestly, constant learning and constant improvement, striving for what is next for me, what is next for my skill set, and what is next for my personal growth. Thinking about that on a regular basis, I think, is another skill that I would add here.
Masha, you've added some amazing comments and some amazing observations. I wanted to focus on problem solving. What is your approach to problem solving, and how do you approach problem solving at work or in family, since we talk about family so often?
So obviously it depends on the context, right? Because some problems, there's already a shortcut, and I'm not going to reinvent the wheel if the solution works for me. However, when it's a new problem that I've never faced, that I want to be creative about, I try to zoom out, and I try to approach the problem out of the context. So there's another book. I'm a bookworm. We've talked about it. There's another book called The Seven Fatal Flaws of Our Brain, or something like that. And it talks about how we tend to, as one of the fatal flaws, we tend to think within the constraints of the context. And, that's why we tend to come up with solutions that have been done before or that are similar, that are just used in this context. So the trick is to zoom out and think about the problem out of context. Try to find solutions from other areas of our lives. And so that's something that I try to do. And one of the tricks that this book actually suggests is thinking of the opposite solution to this problem. So for example, you're thinking about how to increase market share for a magazine, and instead of solving it the way everybody solves it, you think about what is the opposite of what everybody is doing. And that opens up creativity to the next level.
And it's so in line with today's topic, stereotype breakers, which is also the handle for Masha on Instagram. This is how I found her. Isn't she a gem? There you go. Masha, I wanted to ask you, what is your life lesson quote and how did it change you?
So as we just talked about, I consume books like a maniac. Seriously, yes. And every single book that comes into my life makes an impact and creates almost I evolve with every single book. And at this time, I am reading Never Eat Alone by Keith Ferrazzi, which is an amazing book. And I was walking yesterday, and this is my new life quote of the moment. Human achievement grows according to the size of our dreams and to the degree to which we are in touch with our mission. It talks about how if we set big goals for ourselves, ambitious goals for ourselves, that is how our achievements will grow in relation to that. If we set smaller goals, our achievements will grow in relation to that. So that changes your perspective on what dreams and what goals you set for yourself. The bigger you dream, the bigger your achievements will be. So what are you going to do about it?
Micro actions, how to plan, because plans are nothing. Planning is everything. So I would definitely make small steps to lead to big accomplishments, because it's so easy to say, I'm going to be the leader of my tech company. But really defining what are these micro steps is critical, how you're going to achieve it. Because sometimes if we set the goal so high, it's so difficult, it's so overwhelming. But if we take micro actions and we have lined up all this strategy for problem solving, thinking out of the box, thinking how to approach it, and as you said, pan out to have this big view of our problems and how to get to that point, it's definitely going to help you. Breaking the bias in tech. Masha, it's been emotional. It's really resonates with everybody. I see that everybody is touched by you and what you talked about, and also the book. I believe we talked about the fact that this book is also the book you would read if you wanted to start your career, because you're a bookworm and you eat every book for breakfast. Absolutely. Oh, yeah. There you go. So thank you so much for this very inspiring and very resonating discussion. Everyone is better than you at something. If you have a tough time accepting others, it's probably because you think you are superior to them. However, you're not superior to every person in every way. That's our guest Guy Kawasaki mentioned, and that's the way to break these stereotypes. As always, our positivity quote comes from positive thinking only and goes, look for something positive in each day, even if some days you have to look a little bit harder. Thank you so much to our lovely audience. Agata Bellon. We have, oh my goodness, I don't even know. Aya Esmeralda. We have so many comments, I already lost the track. Olga Vasina, In Love and in Pain. We have Marianne Madera, and lots and lots. Next week, how to grow a bespoke software house. Thank you so much, Masha. Today is your future. Today is the future you can achieve, however you set the goal. Thank you. See you next week.